we are, 10:50 on this Friday morning. It's the 7th day of February. It's cold outside. We're getting more snow, but we still have a ways to go until we get to the snow. Marla Nelson is a LCPC with OSF Healthcare right here in St. Anthony's. How's life treating you this Friday morning?
Pretty good. I'm glad it's Friday.
You got a good weekend planned?
Yeah, I'm going to be watching football.
That's cool. Are you a Chiefs fan?
I am.
There you go. Well, coming up on Wednesday, right after the Super Bowl, a couple of days after, a great opportunity for the public lunch and learn session to provide greater insights into medications for addiction treatment therapy. And Marla, take me through this opportunity for the public to engage.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of people have misconceptions when it comes to medicated assisted recovery, especially, for all types of recovery, but especially for opioid use disorder, because some people, there's a myth that, we're just replacing a opioid with another opioid, and it's true that Suboxone is, but, it's really regimented, and I have seen people who couldn't recover from something else be able to go on and live a very full life, because opioid use disorder is hard to really recover from.
Well, and I think it's such a very important conversation to have right now, especially not only with the national conversation about opioids and fentanyl, but what's happening here locally, right here in Madison County in the St. Louis region, which is a hotbed for unfortunately this type of narcotic. And during this lunch and learn, it runs 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. and in it, take me through who this would be a great opportunity for. Is there a targeted audience that you think, in terms of maybe the terminology used, that it would be more suited for?
Well, we did want to ask. We're asking doctors, nurses, anybody really who works with patients, but also anyone who just has any questions about it, because I think, like you said, if you live in Madison County, sadly, I know people who have died, from an overdose. And so a lot of families, again, want to know, what is this, Suboxone or even methadone? Right. What is that? And so we have 2 pharmacists who will be speaking, and I worked for over 5 years with Dr. Chris Herndon, who is so knowledgeable, and I had the opportunity to work in the pain and MAC clinic with him. Okay. And I've just seen people just, who were hopeless come in and get their lives back together.
Well, and see, I find the lived experience so fascinating to talk about, because, so many times I think when we see something on the news or we read something that's not personal or firsthand experience or lived, we, as a society, not us personally, but as a society, are quick to maybe cast a judgment on that individual. And, I always look at it, what if that was my brother, walking in, or, well, what if that was my, son or daughter? And, so many times that's where my brain keeps going back to. Whenever you were in that facility and you're living this, what were your takeaways from not only the people that were coming in and getting treatment, but just the transition that they were on from maybe, as you quoted, hopeless, and you're right, and 100% of the way hopeless, but what was their transition like? What were you able to see when this treatment started to maybe that end stage?
That's a great question, because, we see people who had come in, who had isolated their whole families and who had nothing, and of course, you had to go through detox, and I'm an outpatient counselor, so I will continue to counsel people, any substance abuse, really, or use even. But I would see these people, go from, I don't know if this is going to work, and then they start gaining supports. Maybe they get into recovery meetings, and you just see their lives come back. They get jobs, they have relationships, and then they, while they're doing this, they're stepping down off of the medication. And, they just are so grateful. They really are. They think, man, I just thought I could never do this. And it's really cool to see that play out rather than, what we keep reading in the news and seeing in the news.
100% over.
Yeah.
And with that being said, whenever I was reading through just a little bit of what was going to be discussed and a little bit of the topic, I was looking a little bit more into the stats that were provided too with this 2.6 million number, and that's the people that receive some sort of treatment for alcohol use. But on the flip side of that, at least a noticeable percentage of that 2.6 is receiving MAT for that alcohol use disorder, correct?
Yeah, for alcohol use disorder. Yeah, there's medications too for alcohol use disorder too, and I'm not minimizing that at all because that's important too. Right. It's very helpful.
And with that AUD, is that what that stands for?
Yeah, alcohol use disorder.
On the flip side of that, do you see people that are maybe receiving not maybe MAT for alcohol use, but just going for treatment in some sort of AA or some sort of counseling? What's the likelihood that they'll experience some sort of crossways or pathway just in terms of statistics, if you know that, or just have a ballpark in terms of opioid or any type of supplemental narcotic on top of that?
You know what? That's a really good question. And I really don't know the stats.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
It's okay.
There. Yeah.
But there is that. And I was just reading this study on even marijuana as a gateway.
Yeah.
And so, there's always that chance and likelihood from one addiction to seep into another. Or, and we're even talking about gambling and other addictions as well.
That is so important, too, because, and just because something's legal doesn't mean that it's not addictive, and that's, right. Something that the public needs to take note of. Just like, it is fun to be able to get on my computer and play, Illinois lottery scratch-offs for an hour and a half. Well, that does become an addiction. And you see people that go through very similar withdrawals. Now, in terms of the, narcotic side with dispensaries, the dependency, you see studies on that are coming out where, they don't want to use, maybe not addiction, but strong dependency because they haven't changed the language yet, but it's going to get there. I mean, it's no different than alcohol in a way. Yeah,
that's true. And what's really cool about this Lunch and Learn is I think Chris Herndon will really address why, opioids and other addictions are, latch on stronger in the brain. And I'm not going to even pretend to explain that, but, it's really, he is such a great speaker and answers so many questions. Honestly, if anyone knows somebody who, maybe they're a family member of somebody struggling with addiction, this is a free Lunch and Learn.
Exactly. Well, and that's why I think it's so good to talk about this, because OSF to provide these, I mean, you never know what mother, father, grandparent, wife, husband, you never know who's going through, just going, I'm all out of options. I just want to learn. Maybe I can take something out of this to help us at home. And one small conversation or one, Lunch and Learn, you never know what that could lead to for somebody too. And that's a great point.
Yeah.
And do you have a moment to take a quick break with me?
Sure.
We have to take a break for top of the hour because it is 11 o'clock, but this show is not going to end. We're going to keep it going. I ran behind today, but OSF's in the studio. Marla has a great conversation with me. We'll take you through more about this Lunch and Learn on medication addiction treatment coming down the pipeline on the 12th of February in just a couple of days. You stay there. We'll stay here on RiverBender.com and Roku TV. It's our daily show with CJ Nasello.
Hey, would you drop by the pharmacy? My doctor switched my cholesterol medication.
Yeah, will do, honey. I'm glad he's looking out for you.
OSF Healthcare can handle all of your family's primary care needs, including managing chronic conditions. Schedule an appointment today.
Life's better when you're under the American Family Insurance roof, because they know your house is home base for their dreams. Whether it's a kid like me aiming for the big leagues, ready, future rocket scientist, or a budding prima ballerina. When you feel totally protected, your family's free to pursue their dreams. She's good.
Let's go.
American Family Insurance.
With over 20 years of experience, Wilson's Tree Service has the expertise to handle all of your tree care needs. Licensed and fully insured, their team of experts are dedicated to providing reliable service. Plus, with a 24-hour emergency service line, Wilson's will always be there for you. Don't risk tackling that timber by yourself. Trust the local professionals at Wilson's Tree Service. Visit treeservicealtonil.org to get started today.
No matter the season, Play It Again Sports in Edwardsville has the gear the athletes need to get in the game. Whether you're shopping for the newest sports equipment or saving money on quality used gear, Play It Again Sports carries what you need to maximize performance to get the most out of every swing, kick, stroke, or shot. We'll even buy your used goods, paying cash on the spot. We carry all the gear for all the sports all year long. We're your hometown sporting goods store. Play It Again Sports, conveniently located at 4 Club Center Court in Edwardsville. Picture This and More has been a trusted name in the Alton community for more than 30 years, with the last 3 being right here on Broadway. We specialize in quality framing at affordable prices. We also feature works by local artists because we're proud of our community. If you have valued treasures to display and preserve, we're sure to have the perfect fit with our large selection of custom framing and display options. Whatever color, shape, or size, Picture This and More has the look you need. Stop by today and let us help you with your next project.
Welcome back. It is 11:03 on RiverBender.com, Roku TV. CJ Nasello. It is our daily show with Marla. St. Anthony's OSF back in studio. And coming down the pipeline on the 12th of February, a very important lunch and learn opportunity for so many, as you just pointed out, Marla, in the community, not only just medical professionals and individuals a part of organizations, but, you know, community members, neighbors, family members that are going through maybe that battle of a lifetime, which is all hands on deck if you're seeing your loved one go through something like this.
That's right. And even if you just know someone who you know someone, you know, or you're just curious about it, you know.
More information, the better. So take me through this. So how does the event run with these lunch and learns? How's the format?
So it runs 11:30 to 1. And I think, we will have lunch there at 11:30. People start getting their lunch. We will start at 11:45, so it gives everybody a chance to grab something good to eat, and that is free.
And it's good food.
Yeah. And, you know, then you find your seats, and we'll go through a presentation, and there will be a time at the end of the presentation to answer questions.
That's what I was going to ask. And with that being said, I think the Q&A is so much more valuable for some folks that are going to, because sometimes we don't want to ask the question. We hope that someone else does so we can get an answer, because some of those are sensitive topics, you know, and I think having that Q&A is just priceless, truly.
Yeah, it really is. And what's really cool about this Lunch and Learn, too, we're going to have pharmacists and some staff there from our program, from our detox program, that so we essentially will talk about, you know, what happens from coming into the emergency room, going through detox, and you can answer you can ask all kinds of questions about, you know, how St. Anthony is helping folks with opioid use disorder and other addictions.
Well, and honestly, just the past couple of years at OSF St. Anthony's, you know, bringing, you know, in that detox, because I know that was a big welcome for the community, is knowing that it eliminated a lot of the wait times in other facilities and got rid of some of the overload in some facilities. It was a huge addition to the region.
Right.
And so to share some of that and let people know that those options aren't just an hour and a half away anymore.
That's right.
They're right here in your own backyard. You can get help. Your loved one can get help. That's so vital, too.
It really is. It's important.
Well, and, you know, you've been with OSF for how long now?
So I've been there full-time since early October.
Okay.
I was working part-time since last March.
Well, and with that being said, take me through the last couple of months, almost a year now with OSF part-time now to full-time. What have you been able to see just in terms of their services, your all services in action?
Oh, wow. That's really a good question. So in the psychological services department, we have, I think, is it 5 therapists, 5 or 6?
Wow.
I think we have one coming. And we all kind of specialize in something. However, we still do general counseling, you know, so I see people outside of substance use disorder, you know, for anxiety, depression, trauma, you know, but we do have therapists there that specialize in trauma. We have a person who sees children, and we have a new child therapist coming on board. I'm really
That's exciting,
about
yes.
that. Yeah. And so another one that works with, the older people who have maybe memory problems. It's just really, and then we have a psychologist there too.
Can I ask a little bit more about the older counseling? I didn't know that was, I'm sorry to sound ignorant on this. I didn't know that was a process. Is counseling for folks that are having memory issues, is that a pretty solid avenue? Does that happen quite a bit?
It is, and we have a person there, Kren, who she has a group that she runs for those folks, and I think caretakers who have dementia or other.
That is so fascinating, and I'm glad that you hit on that too, just for the public. And with the psychological aspect of it, the counseling services, do you do on call, or do you do virtual appointments, or is it all in office now?
So we do virtual appointments, telehealth. So if you're able to access your MyChart, we can accommodate that.
Very interesting. Well, and getting back into this Lunch and Learn, which is coming down the pipeline on the 12th of February, 11:30 a.m. until 1 p.m. Where's it going to be held at?
So it's going to be held at St. Anthony's in the, what they call the PHC. Don't ask me what this stands for. I should know that, but I don't. It's on the first floor. So if you come into the main lobby, they will direct you. But it's a really nice room they have for these kind of things, and you should come check it out if you're just curious at all, while there's still some spots left.
Really cool. And Marla, I really appreciate you coming on the show today and talking about this, because the more we have open conversations about things that our medical partners and organizations are doing right here in our community, I think it lets people, kind of lower the shoulders about, because we hear so much about transparency, overall that word. And I feel like sometimes the transparency issue is because we just don't do enough research on our own and maybe some of the information. And what I mean by it on the OSF side is I think there's so many people that don't realize just all of the resources that have been added right here to the facility. And in not terms of transparency, but just awareness, and going, hey, we have a wonderful community partner here. And it goes a step further. The other day, I'll brag about this. I told it on the show Monday, but my grandma had influenza A a couple of weeks ago, and we didn't know it at the time, but she called me, and she used to work in St. Anthony's emergency room and ICU for a long time, and she said, I need to go urgent care. So we went to a facility on Godfrey Road, and the wait time was 4.5 hours when there was no one in the office. Wow. And so, they said, go to the ER. And I said, well, aren't we supposed to come here first, to not congest it? But we went to OSF right there by Walmart. It took 30 minutes, and they were so kind to her. Good. And it was one of those things where it's so nice to know that, with me and kind of a moment of we got to get some stuff done and get her taken care of, OSF was there for us. And it didn't take a 45-minute hour wait. It was just right away. And it shows just how great of a partner you guys are all the way around.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't been with OSF, St. Anthony's for very long, but really just, their mission and how they want to serve the community, it's really kind of cool working for them.
Absolutely.
It is.
And so with that being said, what should our audience take away the most out of this conversation today? Overview, if you could, this Lunch and Learn and this opportunity again.
Okay, so again, we have some spots open for next Wednesday, February 12th. The Lunch and Learn, which means we're going to give you lunch while you learn, from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. And you can register if you go to the website RiverBender.com, and I think you would search on OSF Lunch and Learn, and then all the Lunch and Learn. So there's more than this one. Will come up, and you can look for it and hopefully register, and we will see you there.
We will link everything in an article on RiverBender.com too, so you can just click on the direct link and we'll take you right there to it. Marla, thank you so much for your time this Friday.
Thank you.
We are out of time this week, but I will see you back here on Monday. All of you enjoy it, because we're getting snow Tuesday night into Wednesday. They say 3 to 6. I'm saying 4 to 6. We'll find out on Tuesday, won't we? But until then, have a great weekend, and as always, try your best to stay out of jail.
Yes, he did. He said it was.